Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Digital Edge podcast. I'm Dominik with my co-host Francoise.
Hi, Dominik.
Hello. And today we're talking about how to use AI responsibly. Now, the question is, why is responsible use of AI even a thing? Is there such a thing as irresponsible use of AI?
Probably, but I think that's a really good point, because why do we have to talk about using AI responsibly? For example, are we talking about using electricity responsibly, or other technology? If you are not asking the same question, but I think
Basically anything and any technology could be misused, I guess.
That's true, but probably even more AI at this stage. And I think that there is a lot of discussion about how we use AI, and for me there are maybe three aspects. The first one is the fact that the technology is far from perfect, and there is still a lot of limitations. So we need to pay attention on what AI is creating, and maybe the wrong outcomes of AI. For me, that's the first aspect. Second aspect is, what are we actually using AI for? And we've seen that it's being used in so many different ways, and some usage might be more responsible than others, and we can talk about that. And maybe the third aspect is about the environmental, societal impacts of AI, which are not negligible or even massive, and we have to think on how far can we develop this technology. So maybe that's a way to frame this discussion. And talking about the first aspect, what do you think about the actual limitations of AI today, and why should we be concerned?
Yeah, I think it is a very valid question, right, in terms of limitations. Because what happened a few years ago when AI chatbots came out, it looked like they could just provide any answer to any question on any topic, literally, right? And then what we found as we went into it, we had this concept of hallucinations, and content was fabricated, right? And I think one of my recent favorite example was a professor from Harvard said that students had submitted papers for review with non-existent references, right? So completely fabricated, not just, oh, there's a little typo here or wrong word or wrong context, but entire references in research papers were fabricated, right? And so I think what that means, right, is number one, we need to understand that whatever comes out of it may or may not be accurate. And so we're heading into a whole new level of critical thinking that is needed before utilizing that content comes out, right? Because if you just accept whatever it says, you might get yourself into trouble, and other people as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think probably this is the first point about using AI responsibly. As you said, you cannot trust blindly what comes out, and you need to have a very strong critical eye on what the models are producing. I mean, in my case, I know I can use LLMs when I know the topic, and I can see, if it's trustworthy or if it's wrong.
Yeah.
But many people, they just trust it blindly and consider this is the truth, when we know that it's not. And I think also talking about using AI responsibly, it's also all the aspect about security, confidentiality, data protection, data leakage. We know that when you put anything into an LLM, it's potentially available to anyone, and we've seen leakage of confidential information and business intelligence that are coming out on the market. So I think that's another aspect about the responsible use of AI is what data or information are you providing those models, and is it okay, or are you putting private information in jeopardy, or are you putting people in danger because you are feeding information that is going to be published. So I think that's another aspect of using AI responsibly, is to pay a very strong attention to confidentiality, privacy, security, and even copyrights.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. Right. With regards to copyright, I mean, there's even a question of what fair use is of all the material that is being used to train these AI models. Because the reason why they work is they consume a huge amount of content, right? All kinds of text content that exists online. And the technology basically determines the output to any given input based on the probability that the output meets the requester's expectations, right? And so, again, is it okay to use that potentially copyrighted content to train these AI systems with that, right? Because you'll get a mishmash of the output that's based on that, right? Is that fair use? I don't know, right? I think that's still a question to be answered. And I think from a business concern, you hit it right on the nail right on the head, right? It's the confidentiality of documents, right? Can you contain the content that you're entering into that system, that you're giving access to, that it's not going to end up anywhere else? And yeah, very, very important that it is being considered. Trade secrets, perhaps, legal content, right? That needs to be protected. Any type of confidential or even higher classified content from businesses that needs to be ensured.
So yeah, and I think that's maybe the first lesson is for any organization, whether it's public or private. There is definitely a need to train employees about the limitations of LLMs or other AI tools, to issue clear guidelines on how they can use AI for what purpose, and also to, I think, keep repeating that they need to use critical thinking, so that they don't take the results of an inquiry as as the truth, and they need to verify what is being produced. So I think there is a very strong need to reinforce also the legal and the ethical rules that apply to AI, so that it doesn't put the employees or the organization in danger. If we talk now about the second aspect, where we said what is AI being used for at the moment, because we see we see some applications in science, but we also see a lot of, sorry to say, junk being produced on social media.
Depending on who you ask, it's junk or not.
Yeah, that's what I said. It's my view. So, we were hoping that AI was going to cure cancer, but what we see today often is very different. What do you think?
Yeah, it is a little bit unfortunate, right? I've been working in the health space for many years, helping bring some medicines to market, and that's a process that it takes extremely long. And so when this started, right, and these solutions looked extremely intelligent, it was being thrown around that it's going to help cure cancer and other serious illnesses. And like you said, we're getting down to generating memes for online sharing and other fun aspect of the technology that's maybe a little bit more general purpose. Of course, there's also practical uses, right? Assisting with legal documents, for example. There's a little bit of a different angle of AI is autonomous vehicles, right? Which have made a huge step forward also at the same time. Marketing and business applications are another area where more energy is invested, right? But the question then also remains, right, between that huge computing power, these data centers that are being set up everywhere, and all that effort and investment that's being made, and then we end up with cat and dog videos and funny pictures at the end of the day that many people find joy in, of course, right? But is this is this, a good use of the investment, right? Could there be done more to leverage that for more practical uses, perhaps beyond the, I should say, maybe more the entertainment aspect of it?
Yeah, and I think that's maybe concerning for me as well. I mean, we have that technology which is very accessible, very user friendly,
Mhm.
and we see a lot of these resources being diverted to entertainment and because it's human nature to use those easy tools that are very low effort to develop fun stuff. But I think what is even more concerning is the how can I say, bad usage or perversion of those usage, when you see that those creation are being used as fake news and potentially attacking people, and so I think it's beyond the fun and entertaining aspect of AI, but it's also about manipulating masses. It's about degrading people's image, and I think that some of these perversions are going to also are impacting a lot of people. So I think the aspect of AI for curing cancer versus all that other usage that is maybe on one side fun, but also on the other side probably detrimental to society. I think it's an aspect that is not quite positive.
Yes, yes, indeed. Now, hopefully, I think again, right, with new technology, there are these like maybe again fun uses, less than productive uses, if you will, right? But as technology evolves, hopefully that will gear more towards value generated, right? And models will improve, technology will improve, and that can also come as a lower cost over time as well, right? So we can remain to be entertained, and hopefully also over time that with some learnings and also understanding how these technologies can impact those around us and society as a whole, right? Hopefully that is not going to get abused to that extent without having to put laws and regulations into place, right? That we can over time hopefully self-manage a little bit better than what might be going on today.
Yeah. And I think the other aspect about using AI responsibly is about the environmental impact. And we know that any inquiry uses a lot of electricity, energy, data centers, water, etc. And now I see that people are using ChatGPT like they were using Google, even for very simple inquiries. It's ChatGPT, whereas the resource need is 10 times higher. And I think that's a big concern, where we see that this is using so much resources. And I don't think that people are actually limiting their usage of AI, where they could do things in a simpler way with tools that are less resource intensive.
Yeah, I think unfortunately the genie's out of the bottle most likely, and we've been trained now to interact with a system like an AI chatbot, because it holds a conversation better than the traditional web search, where you go search for one thing and then search for another thing and have to connect the dots yourself, right? But again, from the trajectory standpoint, right? I mean, one of the more fascinating things over the last few months was the goal of putting data centers into orbit around Earth, right? Where we'd be able to harness the energy of the sun and have a connection from there to Earth, and not burden the planet with energy consumption and cooling, which is cooling's free in space, right? Where that might be a possibility if that's needed. Again, my hope is that we can shrink down the compute and the energy consumption through advancements, just like we had huge computers back in the day. Now we have supercomputers in our mobile devices, and I hope that we end up in the same kind of direction and it becomes less interesting building a data center in space. But we'll see.
Yeah, I hope we go into that direction, because what you describe sounds like science fiction. But also, even building those, it's going to drain so much resources where, we would need it maybe to protect the environment, feed the planet, and use energy for something else. So it's always this debate. So maybe coming to the end of this podcast, I think we made an attempt to think about responsible use of AI, but we know, I mean, we've seen it's a huge challenge because it's at all levels. I think as an individual, how can we use it responsibly at a company or organization level? How can we train employees? How can we educate them? But also at an macro level, what are we building, and how is AI being used for the good, but also for the not so good. So I think it's maybe sometimes I sound a bit pessimistic, but I think it's a long way to go before we can feel comfortable about AI on what results it produces and how we use it effectively.
Yeah, agreed. And I think, in my mind, the best thing that we can do is to engage with the technology, to learn it, to understand it, and take personal responsibility for the outputs, right, that we're receiving and what we do with that data, right? It's more so than ever to really challenge what comes out of it. I mean, it takes a little bit of work and thought to do that, perhaps every time, like, well, does that sound right? Let me double check that maybe with a second source or a traditional Google search, right? If there's something that backs that up, again, in light of fabricated sources on research papers even, right? And I think, with all this progress in the technology, that's what it really comes down to at the end, right? That we are, as individuals, taking care of what comes out of these AI chatbots and the technology, and understand what to do with it and using it appropriately.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Dominik, for the discussion, and talk to you soon.
Thank you, Francoise. Bye, everyone. See you next time.
Bye-bye.